morning, Leslie Chandler here. Today I'm going to show you how I make these cute little paper clay dogs, little figurines. This is one I did. This one is actually a one that I call Miss Molly, after my dog Miss Molly. This is a golden retriever that I did a few years back. And this is honoring my sweet beloved Sebastian, who passed away a few years ago. I love that one. And then here is my current puppy, Snoop Dogg. So they're really easy, not too hard. All right, so we're gonna need paper clay. I use this brand. And you wanna have a airtight plastic bag to store this in. This clay dries out very quickly, so you want to keep it in an airtight container when you're not using it. So we want to keep that on hand. We're going to use this to create the body and to put the clay around this after we cut it down a little bit. You want to have some water in a little bowl so that you can wet your hands every now and then. We want to keep that clay moist. It dries out pretty quickly. Sometimes I use a rolling pin if I can't seem to get it thin enough in certain areas. And then I have all of these sculpting tools and some paint brushes that I use to smooth out the clay in different areas. So I also keep a knife whenever I'm working with clay, just in case I need to cut certain areas. These are a couple that I've started. There's a little Dachshund that I haven't finished yet. Here's another one that's a golden retriever. It's gonna be a funky one. And then I started this deer. I always make the little legs of animals like this. Like I've done some giraffes. I don't have one right by me, but I always use chopsticks. I always use chopsticks for the legs. So anytime we have Chinese food, I always make sure I bring my chopsticks home. They make great little legs on my clay animals. But anyway, so you can make all kinds of cool things with this paper clay. But today we're just gonna make a dog. So let's go ahead and get it open. And here in a minute, I'm gonna move the camera so that you can be right over what I'm doing. But I'm gonna just tear off a small piece to start with, about like that. And then I'm gonna make sure I close this up really tight. And I usually put a piece of tape over this as well because I don't want it to dry out. Then I'm going to stick it back in the bag or back in this little freezer bag, wrap it a little bit more, and then close it because I don't want it to dry out. It was about $11. I got it on Amazon so that I wouldn't have to go to the store since it's a pandemic and everything. So anyway, I have this clay ready, and what I do is I would start off by cutting down the form with this knife. So I want it to be flat so it'll sit flat. And so what I'm gonna do is cut off the bottom of this egg shape so that it'll be kind of flat. Do that over there because the styrofoam, it tends to flake, and we don't want that in the clay. So we're gonna keep that away from our work area. So now it kind of sits flat. Let me move him out of the way. And I'm still not completely satisfied with it, so I'm going to cut a little bit more. And then again, take those flakes off and then set it down. So if I was doing the golden retriever, I would probably keep it just like this because that matches the shape of his body that I have going here. But if I was gonna do like a skinnier kind of dog, then I would cut this down a little bit. And I think I'm gonna kind of do a replica of Snoopy, maybe do another Snoopy. So I'm gonna cut the sides off just a little. Again, I wanna keep it over here so that I don't get these flakes. That's experience talking. That stuff gets in your clay, these little styrofoam things, and makes it so hard to work with. It just makes it really clumpy and not very attractive. So let's see. Do a little bit more off all four sides, just making him a little bit of a skinnier dog. towel that off. You can even brush it off a little bit just to make sure it's all that flakiness is off. There. Okay, so now we have the little form that I'm gonna use to start making Snoop Dogg. So I'm gonna put that right there, and now I'm gonna move the camera real quick so that you can see what I'm doing better. All right, so you can see I've got my little Snoopy here. He's gonna be my model. And then here's my form that we're gonna put the clay over. And then here is my piece of clay right here. Probably not gonna use all of this, but I'm gonna start out with that little form there. And what I'm gonna do is pull off a little piece of clay and just kind of knead it a little bit, make sure it's moist. And then we're just gonna start by putting the clay on this form and covering it up. So you wanna be careful that these little pieces of the styrofoam don't come off and get mixed in with the clay, because it's literally crummy, very crummy, and it makes your clay not very smooth. So I'm just kind of really quickly just putting the clay on the form all the way around, not really shaping or anything yet. Just trying to make sure I have that whole area covered. And then you can kind of set it on the table to make sure that this part is nice and straight and smooth, so it'll sit properly when you get it finished. You want it to be able to stay sitting up wherever you're going to put it, whatever shelf you're going to put it on. So make sure that the bottom part here is nice and smooth. All right, so I have that. So now I'm ready to start smoothing this out. So I put a little bit of water on my fingertips and just go around and smooth it out. Smooth this little body out. Kind of have to decide, okay, when you're looking at it, which side looks more likely to be the front, which more likely to be the back or the sides. So when I'm looking at this, I feel like this is the front, this area. So I'm gonna make it really nice and smooth. Again, I'm feeling a little roughness on the top here, like the styrofoam is trying to poke through. I don't want that. Okay, so there's his little body, just to start out with. Now we want to create his head. So remember, his head is kind of skinny little neck, and then his tiny little pointed nose. So we're going to get another piece, and I'm going to knead it a little bit. I don't know if that's big enough. I usually start off with a ball, kind of more of an egg shape or an oval type shape. And then when we put it on top here, I'm going to put a toothpick in here and stick it on the top of this piece right here. All right, so what I do is I get a piece of a toothpick. I broke this one off, and part of it is going to go into the body and the other part to the head. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get some clear Elmer's glue and put a little bit of glue on the toothpick so that it'll kind of glue down in there. And then put a little bit more on the tip. And then put his head on. All right, so we don't want his head to look like this. That doesn't really look like this guy, right? So we're gonna have to do some forming to create that long neck and then his nose. So that's what I'm gonna be working on here. So again, I'm gonna dab my fingers in this water. And this probably is the hardest part, just trying to make the neck look right. Missing here. I know we need some ears. I'm not ready for that yet. ears and see if that will make him look a little more like a dog. Again, I'm smoothing out his body a little bit because I've been handling him, messing him up. Get a little bit more clay. Just a couple of little round pieces to make his ears. Don't forget to wrap up your clay really tight again. So I've got 2 little round pieces and I'm just gonna knead them into a little ball. We really don't need them to be very big at all. So then I pinch them a little bit with my thumb and give it a nice elongated shape, kind of like a triangle on the end. Because my Snoopy, he's really my puppy, has very pointy ears. So making it flat on the bottom where I'm going to attach it and then pointed on the ends. I don't know if you can see that. So we're just going to put one here. And when you put it on, just kind of mush it down into the clay. And then this is where I like to use my little paintbrush and just dampen that paintbrush a little bit and then just smooth it out. What's really cool is after the clay dries, we can sand it and get off any areas that are not smooth and not satisfied with how they look. Okay, so he's got one little, I like that ear. I think that'll work. So now he's got an ear. Now we want to give him an ear that looks pretty much like that ear. So I want to try to keep it about the same size as much as you can. Again, roll it into a circle. Make a triangular shape by pinching it with your thumbs. And pinch off that top part. This is going to be flat. And then again, we're gonna just try to put it in the same place on the opposite side. Mash it down. The tip of my fingernail works really good for this part. Smooth it out with a little water on your fingers, and you're supporting that with your thumb or another finger just to make sure that it doesn't push down too hard. So let's see. I'm gonna put like they're down. So now we have the 2 ears. I still don't like his face. So when you look at this one compared to this guy, the nose isn't as sharp. So I need to work on that nose a little bit, make it a little bit longer. All right, still not completely satisfied with that nose. I'm gonna keep working on that. Now right now though, I'm gonna go ahead and smooth out his body some more. Just going all the way around and making sure I feel like he's nice and smooth. Now we don't have any of that crummy feeling from the styrofoam. Now, like I said, once this thing dries, we can actually use a fine sandpaper and sand it before we paint it so that it'll be nice and smooth. Wonder if I put a little round nose on him, if that would make it look more realistic, a little tiny nose. So I'm just taking a little tiny ball, just see if that'll add something to the top of his nose, or the tip of his nose. Then he's liable to look like Rudolph. I don't know, I think that kind of made it look better. think I'm gonna go with that. See, I like that. I think that gave him a little more character, and it'll make it funner when I paint it. It'll make his nose. And so maybe what I should do is kind of put a little mouth there with the toothpick. I'll use that to etch in a little mouth right underneath his nose. So what I did was I just made a little V. I don't know if you can see. Just made a little V right here under his nose. We can brush that out with the paintbrush. And I think it'll be more noticeable once it dries and we paint it. That'll give me a good place to put his mouth. All right, so there's that. What I'm gonna do is, I think on this one, I don't think I sculpted, like, I don't think I made any kind of indentation for his eyes. I think I just painted them on there. But what is he missing? He's got ears, nose, he's gonna have eyes, he's got a body, but he doesn't have any feet. And he certainly does not have a tail. So we're gonna have to make him some little feet. And the way I do that is kind of like I did with the ears. I make 2 little tiny balls, about equal in size, roll them up, flatten it out with your finger, and then go to the front where his feet would be. I don't think that's big enough. Let me make a bigger one. You can already tell, look at my hands, you can already see that the clay is trying to dry out. See, let's pinch that with my finger. And then put that so he's sitting pretty good. Now we want to make it look like he has some toes. And the way that I do that is I just use the toothpick to make some impressions. Actually kind of looks funny. And now let's make him a tail. So we just have the right amount of clay left here. So if you look on this guy, all I did was create a little string of clay there. And of course we just do that by rolling it out. You can do a lot of different things with the tail. You can make it where it's curled up, or my clay is drying out. Or you can make it where it's just laying on the floor. So let's see, I'm gonna put it right here. So again, we're just gonna press it on in the area that we want it attached. Smooth it out. And then that's a little bit, that's like a cat tail. It's a little bit too long. So we're gonna pinch it off there. And now I'm just gonna go back and smooth out several different areas. And sometimes I have to stop and wash my hands because they get dried up clay on them. And it makes it really hard to work with the clay. So after I do that, I just get back to smoothing out. It's not gonna be perfect, but like I said, each one of these is unique and individual, have their own little unique markings. All right, let me see. It looks like he has one ear up and one ear down. That's okay. All right, so I'm gonna stop. That is what we're gonna have to let dry out overnight. That's our little Snoopy. You can see him. in his glory. And then what we'll do is, after he's nice and dried out, usually it takes about 24 hours, then we're gonna paint him and make him look more like this guy.